Hello, everyone, and welcome to show number 116 of This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. I am one of your co-hosts, Lauren Gray, coming to you from beautiful Cape Coral, Florida, where the weather has changed. And Mr. Robert Cole with Rock Cheetah has joined me from the far off north.
The beautiful vistas of Menominee Falls, Wisconsin.
See, talk about contrast. Florida and Wisconsin. What's the weather up there like right now? Temperature-wise?
It's getting a little chilly. So
really?
it was actually when we left Dallas. It was 46 degrees on Thursday morning. It was 51 here, but now it's adjusted to proper. I don't know.
It's realigned itself to proper what you would expect weather.
What you would expect. Yeah, it's actually they've had a very nice. Very, very nice fall here. It's 36 degrees outside. So
wow, that is. I was about to say, because if you weren't going to call 47 chilly, I mean, right now it's 72 degrees.
Okay, so perfectly doubled.
Yes. Well, considering that, I mean, we got a cold push through. It's going to warm up. It's going to rain over the weekend. It's going to get back up to 84. And then it's going to drop down, I guess, another cold front's coming through or something like that. So this is a beautiful time. I mean, this is where it's kind of a mixed bag. You look forward to this weather, but being a local resident, you dread the seasonality of it, because all of a sudden, restaurants that you could get a seat at, there's a line. Traffic, places that you used to go to, there's traffic. Stores you used to go to, it's crowded. It gets to where you don't want to go do anything because there's just so many snowbirds that show up. So, but it's a minor complaint for the weather and the privilege of being down here. So, all worked out good. So, yes. Well, we have a little boatload of stuff to talk about today. I know that Mr. Stuart Butler won't be able to join us. He has something about clients. Like, what? Priorities, dude.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, come on. Show first, client second. And then Mr. Ed, and he gets a mea culpa on this one. He is bringing his family to Animal Kingdom today because, as you know, he's a season pass holder. It's right down the road from the parks, and he is probably the biggest kid in his family anyway. So any excuse to go to the parks, he's there, and this was a good weekend for it. So, but he did share some interesting news. We battled in Geek World, and he did get up this morning at 3 a.m. to order his new iPhone, and
he did.
Yes, and I was not in a condition to get up at 3 a.m. Having gone through some medical stuff, so I was not even going to even think about moving, so I wouldn't cry anymore. And he did get in. He is getting his new phone shipped in 2 weeks, and I'm getting mine shipped in 6 weeks. So for 4 weeks, I will have to endure Mr. Edward St.
So what was? Yeah, look at my
new phone. Yes. So although I do have a new watch and he doesn't, so there is a little bit of parity there, but not much. I can't last for that one for long.
So so we should do a quick update on the watch. Is it the Series 3 with GPS and cellular, or just the GPS? It's the full.
No, it is the Series. It's the full blown with the LTE, and I can tell you, it has been. I had the Series 1. And it was helpful and useful, but to be fair, after about 6 months, I probably could have bought one of those fitness watches, and have had probably most of the same use. I mean, it was fun to get the notifications and to see my emails, but it was slow. If I didn't have my phone, forget about it. But I really mainly used it as a watch, a very smart watch, and then also as for a fitness tracker. This is life changing. Having your phone here is life changing.
Well, and when you go on Wi-Fi when you're not, when you're not,
and you can listen to music. You can listen to music without your phone. When I walk the dog, I don't have to worry about where's my phone? I gotta bring it. I can call Renee. I get phone calls on this. I get my notifications, and they have what's called a Siri screen, and because you can talk to Siri now on this without the phone, and it's a dynamic screen. It'll keep you up to date with what's going on, your notifications, and then you swipe it to a new screen, and you have different face that you've put together for whatever you're interested in doing. But answering the phone, great speaker. It's pretty much waterproof.
It's down to 50 meters, I understand. So.
Yeah, and for me, not being the diver that I used to be, that's plenty. So for me, this has been this is probably one of the most effective things that's changed technology-wise for me is this phone because of the light program to it. I'm looking forward to the new phone. Don't get me wrong, but this now, because the neat part of it is that now in meetings where you used to have to glance down at your phone because your watch wasn't telling you everything, your watch tells you everything now. Right. So it's pretty cool in that sense. But anyways,
hard to update spreadsheets remotely on it. But hey, what? Yeah.
Hey, eventually we're going to have some other methodology that's going to throw a projection of a AR in front of us, and we're going to do all the Minority Report navigation in the middle of midair or something.
Well, you can tell them your procedure you had were neural implants, so they.
Yes. So now I'm getting more. Yes, the medical thing I had done became me more Mr. Robot. Actually, to be fair, I am Mr. Robot now because I was operated on robotically. It was really weird for the part that I do remember in the operating room that there was this massive machine with little needles, kind of like Star Trek's worst nightmare machine that's going to come down and descend on you. But the doctor was actually sitting off to the side with manipulators and keyboard, and it was bizarre to think that he wasn't going to be standing over me. And then after that, I don't remember anything. But it was just one of those scary thoughts.
I am actually shocked. I thought you would be the type of guy who would say, I don't want any sort of anesthetic. I don't want to be put under. I want to see how you're doing this.
Give me that wood piece of wood and leather strap. I'm for you. Shut up, Randy, and I'm good.
There is Holly.
Hey, Holly. Whoop, no audio. Did you hear her? No. Audio.
Hi.
There you go.
There she is. Okay.
How are you?
Thank you. Go well. Doing well. Smiling.
It was operated on robotically.
Yes, I had a Mr. Roboto. I had an abdomen injury. And they had to go in and put me under general anesthesia with the air pipe and everything. And they did it robotically. So the doctor's sitting off on the side with a keyboard and manipulators, and the machine was doing all the work. I mean, I wasn't there for. I was there for it, but I wasn't there for it. Yeah, actually, it was a better surgery than the laparoscopic, because they had to go in laparoscopically anyway. But the machine robotically did all of it, and it's just amazing. I mean, yeah.
And the best part, he said it's right in the back of Costco. He just goes right there.
It was in this little trailer. It worked out perfect for me. It was like, boom, I get some big old toilet paper, and then boom, I get an abdominal surgery. It's amazing, the service pack. But yeah, I'm avoiding taking the medication they give me. They give me some heavy duty medication. I'm like, no, I already don't sound unintelligent on the phone on the show anyway. So taking the medication would not help that cause. So.
Oh, but we would be entertained.
Oh, you would be entertained. I'd be talking about pretty colors and everything else, by the way, they gave me stuff. So I think, no, I'll tough it out. I'll be that manly man able to put up with some pain until I start whimpering and have to sign off or something. But hey, Mr. Tim. No, it's a repair. It just goes to prove, I was telling Robert before the show, that being young and indestructible isn't true. Because the doctor was like, this is a really abnormal tear in your abdomen wall. And he said, what did you used to do? So I was having the martial arts, and I used to have people break cinder blocks in concrete slabs with a sledgehammer on my stomach for doing demonstrations, martial arts demonstrations. And he's like, yeah, and you didn't think that was going to have some sort of long-lasting effect? I'm like, no, I was young, man. I thought everything was fine. Didn't hurt, and it's like, yeah, he says that made it brittle and it tore. So, yeah, bless your heart for being so stupid when you were young.
You are more weird than I thought.
Exactly. I won't tell you about walking and breaking ice blocks either, because then you just think I get strangers. So
I thought it was when you were the sword swallower in the circus.
No, I skipped that part.
Okay.
Although according to the doctor with the air hose, they had to drop it down farther than normal. So maybe I was a sword swallower this past day and I didn't even know it. Mr. Tim, you got headphones on, dude. What happened to the earbuds?
Something's going on weird with my computer. I'm having like the technology week from hell. Actually, the better joke, I should have just said, I really want to look like that Lando Calrissian's assistant from Empire.
Slide the head.
Slide the head. Yeah, you got to.
There it is.
Yeah, but they won't stay on that way.
Leia.
That's right. Holly's. Yeah, it's a Halloween show. We should have done it like a Star Wars thing. Yeah, you could have done the Cinnabon thing. So.
Well, I'm having the tech week from hell. For some reason, I can't get my earbuds to work. That makes no sense to me, even though my system is telling me everything's completely fine there. And Comcast has decided that they want my internet to be total garbage. So my internet drops out completely. I may be in and out of the show, and there's nothing I can seem to do about it because my internet drops out for a good 4 or 5 minutes every 25 to 30 minutes or so.
Yeah,
that's good. That makes you appreciate the internet. You were taking it for granted earlier, Tim.
Yes, this is your pendant.
Robert, it took everything I could do to not give you the finger right now. Because
I've been through that. I've been through that process. Yes, it's not good.
I didn't plan for the laughing part of the show. I'm sitting here laughing and crying at the same time because it just hurts and laughing. Anyway, but
we'll
no,
do our best to not be funny this week.
yeah, that's not going to work.
Well, it's pretty much like every other week.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so no, I was talking to Ed a little earlier.
Warren heavily medicated, same thing. Yeah, it's all the same.
What's the difference? But I was talking to Ed a little earlier this morning, and he's off to Animal Kingdom with the family. But he was had to call me and make sure we confirmed that we had ordered our new phones. Of course, he got up at 3 a.m. I was not quite in the condition to do it, and but he still ended up having to wait for 2 weeks for delivery because even his best laid plans, he first goes to AT&T, and he said, "This is great. They have this queue before they pre-launch, and you're in the queue." He says, "But as soon as they launch, you can only get the 64 gigabyte gray case." And so he jumps over to Apple. Apple's on the "we'll be back" part. It got frozen. And so he jumps over to Best Buy. Best Buy, he can get in on Best Buy, but he can't get any order completed. So he jumps back to anyway. He tells this whole story until finally he gets into Apple and he has a 2-week delay. So he's going to get his phone about 2 weeks before me. That when I got up this morning, the first thing I did was crawl over to the computer.
When are you scheduled to get your phone?
December 11th. Well, 11th through 18th, to be fair.
And this is the 10, I'm assuming.
Yes, the X, the special X. Yes,
It's not the 10. It's the X.
it is the 10. Well, it's the 10. I don't. I think they go back and forth as to what they're calling it. I guess was it the phone 10 or X10? I keep hearing talk about
the 10. It is the
It is
iPhone
the 10.
10.
Okay.
They just spell it with an X.
Okay. Yeah. So that's So I'm going to get mine 2 weeks later. So expect about mid-November for Ed to show on the show with the sheepish grin. And then you see this phone elevate from his hand, and then the light will hit it, and the little angelic voices will go on. Then he'll have a devilish smile as he shows off his new phone. So yeah, that's
hold on 1 second. Let's see. Mine will arrive. I'm pulling it up right now if the network will allow me.
See, Holly's just shaking her head. She's like, "Really? This is exciting news."
I have gotten every new iPhone. I'm not getting this one. I'm done.
No,
I got the watch, but I'm not getting this new one.
Did you get the 3? Did you get the 3?
I did. Yeah.
Did you get it with the light, the LTE?
Yeah.
What do you think? Because Robert was asking me about it. I said this was a big change for me. I really love my watch now.
I love my watch.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It is. Like I told him, it was life changing, not in some like over dramatized way, but I don't worry about where my phone is. I answer phones. I get the Siri screen. Do you keep the Siri screen?
I do. I
love that one.
I just changed it yesterday because I want to try something new, but I had the Siri up until then. It's fantastic.
It keeps updating with stuff, and then if I want to change the screen, swipe it over to something else that I have other different controls on.
Plus, I gotta say, I love talking on my watch. Like
Dick Tracy or Inspector Gadget.
Fun. It's just so cool. But I'm not getting the 10. It's just not. There's not enough. I can't wait to hear what you think about it.
I'm getting mine December 6th.
Oh, you're getting yours before Ed.
Great. Now,
I'm not
no.
getting one.
Tim's going to get his before me, so I have to do with both Ed and Ted.
And I'll just do that same like, ooh, look.
Shiny.
December 6th. And I didn't get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I logged on to Verizon at about 9 o'clock this morning and ordered it with no problem.
Nice.
I don't know why. Verizon always seems to have a good supply. I have always had my phone on like the day or a couple days after it comes out. I've always gotten it through Verizon, and it's not been an issue at all. As much as
I think Verizon negotiates very well with Apple to make sure that they have supply if they're going in as a thing.
Yeah, they really must. It's funny. I just bitched about Comcast. I know Verizon hasn't always had the best reputation, but I've never had a problem with Verizon.
Renee has Verizon, and she's been doing good with it. I mean, I have AT&T, and I like it. T-Mobile, I don't like.
The only thing I don't like about Verizon, and this is incredibly, this is a very isolated personal issue, is I am sitting in my office right now. You can tell because look, office equipment like guitars,
Yes.
and my office is we live in a 3-story house, but the 1 story is the basement. I've completely finished walkout basement, so it's not a normal basement, right? But so my office is in the basement. And I can't get signal in my office.
Right.
So that's my only issue, but it's just because of where the house sits and where the room sits in the house and things along those lines.
Did you ever get that drop-down gate so the car could pull out super fast from the garage, from the basement like Batman? Did you get that fixed?
So why did you guys get the 10? Just because it's new, or are there features that you felt like was worth the 1,000+ price tag?
It's new.
So I'll go
go
first.
Yes.
I'll go first. So first of all, I think we need to ignore the price tag.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No.
Money is no object in the world of Tim.
Fantastic.
No, that's not true. That's not true. It's just, when we think about a device that we touch, 50 times a day, 60 times a day, every single day, the cost is not a big factor in real terms, right? I mean, this is something I live the biggest chunk of my life on. Increasingly, I don't use my computer for anything. The laptop that I'm using right now for this show. So I use the laptop for the show. I use it typically to record my podcast, and that's about it. I do some writing on it and things like that, and some presentations and all. But
so writing presentations, the show,
creating content.
podcast.
You create content. Yeah.
I do a lot of content. No, I do a lot of content creation on my iPad. I do a lot of writing on the iPad. I do a lot of creating presentations.
On your iPad, not on your phone, but on your iPad.
But for everything else, I do it on the phone, right? Everything.
So email. You check email.
I check email. I text. I talk to people on the phone. I surf the web. I read books. I do research. I was on 3 flights this week and never took any device out of my backpack. I used my phone for all of it, right? I was in cars. I never took any device out of my backpack. I used my phone, right? So the cost factor just isn't that big deal. Oh, I started to say this laptop. This laptop is the oldest laptop I've ever owned personally, because I was usually on a 3-year upgrade cycle, 4-year upgrade cycle, things along those lines. This one is going on 5 years old. And there's no need to upgrade it. For the things I need it to do, it's perfectly fine. And my phone and the iPad have replaced it in terms of for my day-to-day usage for all that other kind of stuff, right? So I'm increasingly trying to get to a place where I don't have to have a computer. And your 7 just wasn't cutting it. I like the 7. I like the 7 a lot. My 7 is actually broken. So there is a real issue here. It's not super broken, but the place where you plug in the lightning connector is bent. So the lightning connector doesn't always stay in. So I can't always be assured that the phone will be charged the next day, like when I go to sleep.
Which is why I ended up getting a battery case, so I didn't keep plugging things in and out. I left the battery case on. So
yeah. So I mean, that's a it's a thing. Holly, here's the thing.
Let's hear it.
I want the phone.
I want the phone.
That is
That's
the
all I wanted to hear.
Okay.
I have more.
I'm going to-
I have more
with one caveat. I would be very surprised if they come out with an 11 next year if I upgrade. Right. The processor in the 10 is actually faster than the processor in any Mac that they make right now.
Right. Well, same too with the 8. The 8 has the same processor, which I was going to do as a fallback if I couldn't get this phone before the end of the year. I was going to fall back and actually buy the 8. But a couple of things, Holly. One is the screen size on the 10 is the same as the big phone, but in the same size as the small phone.
That's the other reason.
Okay?
How's that possible?
Because it's an OLED.
Less bezel.
Yeah, there's less bezel to it. It feels, and granted, Samsung is similar to it, and they use OLED, so you're doing something that's similar to other technology. Go ahead.
This big bit up here and this big bit there go away.
Go away.
And so I can have the smaller phone. That actually is a reason. I want the smaller phone with the bigger screen.
The pass-through charging, rather than having to plug it in, because to Tim's point, the plug wears out. And I'm constantly plugging in when I'm sitting down, and it just rather to avoid that problem, I'm just going to have it where I can put it onto a pad like a watch does. But the other is the processor. To Tim's credit, point is that it is faster than laptop processors right now. And so I don't think there's going to be a massive change next week. They're already not next week, next year, as to the phones. They might have a different edition of this, but I waited 3 years. I'm still sitting on the original 6. And it is amazing the processing speed impact now, because now I have so much latency with apps because apps have progressed so far along since the processor in the 6 that some of the apps are just not worth me even messing with because they're just so slow. And to the other Tim's point, when I travel, I have found that it's so much more convenient rather than when you get it, when you have your routine getting onto the plane and you got your water bottle and your iPad or something in your bag and this is just to sit down and your phone sitting in your top pocket and you're done. It's just boom, and your phone is complete and everything's there. And this screen with the size is optimal for it. And to get to Tim's point, the more I travel, the more I just rely on using the phone. And I think that next year we're going to be faced with some serious restrictions on flight. They're already hitting the international flights with the ability to have laptops. They're making already the fact that you can't even pack a laptop unless you're carrying it on board. And now I think you're going to start seeing laptops that have removable lithium batteries that you have to rent when you get there because you can't carry them on a plane, but you still want a laptop. Or you're going to start seeing more dummy terminals being offered that you can bring your phone.
So you're buying the 10 as a precautionary.
No, just
I
want to reduce what I'm carrying. I really do want to stop carrying a laptop.
Hire you.
I want to be really fair.
Only want one.
I want to be really fair. I'm buying it because I want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know
that too.
All of the things that Lauren just said are true, but I'm buying it because I want it.
Yes.
Well, and for me, I bought every single phone up to the 7. I have the 7 Plus. I got the big size. And I just refuse because I'm mad at them. I want innovation, and there's no innovation.
Yeah, but it's a maturing market. I mean, wait.
If
You
Steve
want
Jobs
innovation.
is still
Wait,
here,
you want innovation.
Oh, he's going to get you on this one.
No, you just said it. You want innovation, and you're wearing a phone on your wrist.
That's why I got. That's why
that is the innovative product.
I quoted
I'm
you,
not
Tim.
spending my money on the 10.
Yeah,
I quoted you, Tim. I went over and said the 9.
Is...
When people ask me what happened to the 9, I says, according to Tim Peters, the 9 was this watch.
Which I credit where due. A friend of mine is the one who said that, but it was
that's right. I'm giving you the credit. I even said your name. I said Tim Peters says this is the 9.
But it was a brilliant observation. If you think about the watch with the ear pods, that's the 9.
Yeah.
Right. And it's possible that the 10. To your point about innovation, Holly, it's entirely possible the 10. Okay, this isn't going to be true, but I'm going to make a bold statement. The 10 is the last phone that Apple will ever make. And what I mean by that is they'll begin transitioning a lot of the capabilities into a different form factor.
Wearable.
Right?
I think the wearables, whatever. Right.
And Holly, just to be fair, when I say about the laptop restrictions and so forth, I think technology is going to shift to the point that you can carry your phone. And then when you get somewhere, you're going to put your phone, it's going to connect to, if you need a larger engagement process, keyboard, larger screen or something, your phone will talk to it. And so everything about what you need when it comes to programs and data and everything else, whether cloud connected or not, will be through the phone communication into a different terminal. Because carrying big laptops and power cables and so forth, it's just going to get tighter, the restrictions as they go on. Unless they change fundamentally how batteries are made, we're always going to have this issue of safety concerns.
Yeah. So, and Apple has this challenge too, because the same thing happened with the iPad. I mean, iPad sales are really dropping, like a rock sort of thing, because people are either going for their MacBook Pros and, the watch or the phone, that sort of thing. So they're developing these products, and it's similar. The iPod, right? iPod was, sunset revolutionary product, had a lifespan of, a real lifespan of about a decade, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was still around, but then they sunset it later. So that's what they're doing. So Apple's always had their little ways of limiting functionality or something to keep you on the other platforms. I mean, when they came out with the iPad, you could do a keyboard, but you couldn't do a mouse, right? They had the capability to do it, but they would not allow Bluetooth mouse pairing, which again would have just wiped out a lot of the, a lot of their MacBook sales. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the phone, because that's such a massive portion of their profit and a massive portion of their revenues to go to the watch. It'll be interesting. And if people stop buying MacBooks, all of a sudden the average sale price starts going down to $400.
Where they got helped with that, Robert, you're absolutely right. But where they did get helped with that is with the iPad Pro, because what they did was they jacked up the price. Two things have gone up, right? They've jacked up the price of the iPad Pro, which, by the way, is the iPad I own, and I only bring that up because I didn't own an iPad for a long time. I bought an iPad Mini when they first came out, and then once I got the 6, actually this is the 7, but when I got the 6. Between a phone this size and my Mac, the Mini was of no use to me. Right. So I didn't have an iPad for a long time.
We have an iPad 1.
Well, I bought
we got it Pro really early. Yeah, and it's useless, right?
I've had every version of iPad
Pro this year, specifically because it was, do I get a new laptop? I mean, this laptop is starting to, it's fine, but it's it's a bitch to lug. I bought a big laptop when I got it. It's the 15-inch screen. It's heavy. I travel a lot. It's unwieldy. I can't use it on a plane very often because the minute the person in front of me puts their seat back, because of my size, I can't see.
I've never been able to use one on the plane. Yeah,
I've got a 17-inch one. Yeah, it's the same.
I
thing.
have a 17.
It's great.
Oh, I have a
It's
17
great.
in a closet, but I don't use it any longer. You know, the 17 is like 8 or 9 years old. That's a fairly old computer. But I went back and forth. Do I buy, the small 13-inch MacBook, or do I get something like an iPad Pro? And as I looked at it, I went, well, wait a second. For travel, the iPad Pro is exactly what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's what I got. And now when I travel, I did take the Mac with me this trip because I was gone for a long time. I was gone for 4 full days. I was on the 6:45 a.m. flight Monday morning, and I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning last night. So for that, I took the MacBook. But generally speaking, if I'm gone for 2 days or 3 days, the only thing that goes with me is the iPad.
Yeah. Well,
And it works great. It's a great plane computer. It's a great presentation computer. It's a great writing computer.
Doesn't say you do your presentations from your iPad?
I've
Yeah.
done
You
them.
go places?
Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Absolutely.
from an iPad Pro, you can. The same thing with an
iPad Pro.
I'm
yeah,
not-
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not.
You don't have
I'm
the
not in the Apple world. I've been in the Apple world for a long time. The rest of my family is in the Apple world, but being the still a Windows Android type guy. But I've got a Microsoft Surface Pro 4. It's great.
I do too.
And I
love
use it
I love
exactly
mine.
the same. Exactly the
But
same.
that's a
way.
good computer. That's a real good computer. And the new ones
That's
are
why
really rocking.
Right. Yeah, it works just great. Now I still have my Lenovo, which is a gaming computer, 17-inch screen, hardcore, lots of RAM, and I do create a lot of stuff on that. And so, like when I'm at the Focusrite conference in a couple of weeks, I sit in the back. They have tables, and I've got 4 or 5 windows open with different things. Yeah, I'll be using that. But otherwise, yeah, when I travel, that thing stays at home. That's like my old desktop computer.
Desktop,
Even though it's a notebook, that is my desktop. It stays there. And
So for next week's show and tell, I'll show you my new toy that I have. It's a 3-axis gimbal for my phone that I can take video with and photos with.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I picked one up for $139, which is a very affordable price for a 3-axis gimbal. And so now I can have Steadicam with the phone kind of thing. I already had a Steadicam for big cameras, but now I have a Steadicam for the phone. So, toys. Anyway, hey, we got to talk about hospitality. We got to talk about Robert. Thank you for a lot of articles, and Holly, thank you also. I went over and snippeted out Cindy Estes Green article, the exec summary statements to it.
I think I've read most. I didn't make it all the way through the full report, but yeah, that would be a great topic to discuss.
Yeah, I'm gonna post the exec items to it, and Holly, if you would like to, by all means, please take on the topic while I post this in.
Well, I was sort of hoping that Ed was going to be here for this because, no, it might have been, it was Ed, I think, who was so down on Hilton's original strategy for Book Direct. Oh, it was Robert. I just assumed it was Ed. And so, Robert, I think the way that I read the report, I think it worked.
I don't think so.
I knew it. How do you figure that?
Because reading through the report, what they came up with is that really there's a net cost difference of 8.6%, right? That's really the net. They're saying, hey, if you book direct, you do that. The one thing that was left out, and I did not get through the chapters at the end, is my issue with the strategy is, A, it's not loyalty. This has absolutely nothing to do with loyalty. This is a discounting strategy.
Right.
And
but
Making a face, Robert. I'm going to let you
more
finish your
profitable.
point, but I'm going to beat you up on that one in a second. But go on.
No. Okay. If you're looking at customer retention and customer lifetime value, that this is a behavior that will have people repeatedly go to, use this particular, access this discount. Yes, but I don't see that as loyalty. Loyalty is what you guys are exhibiting with the Apple, iPhone X. You want one. You're willing to pay a premium for it. You are loyal. You are loyal to that, right?
Price,
my daughters
that is
are
absolutely
loyal
true.
to Apple. That is loyalty. Okay. Now,
And I'm gonna push back on that for 1 second because I agree with you. I agree with what you just said there 1,000%. Right. I always think people are loyal to Amazon, and their loyalty program is a real loyalty program. They make you pay
Right.
to join
Exactly.
something.
Yes.
And they don't even guarantee that you'll get the best price or anything. That's
Right.
real loyalty. Apple is
Absolutely.
real loyalty. Harley Davidson is real loyalty, right? If somebody would get a tattoo of it on their body, that's real loyalty, right?
Right.
Well, hold on one second. Holly, just let me finish this one point, and then I'll shut up. The thing is, find me a brand, a chain brand in the United States in travel that people have loyalty to in the hospitality industry. Loyalty programs are rewards programs, have been rewards programs for years, and we've been paying our guests for years to stay with us. So if we can use that mechanism to actually direct more business to a more profitable channel, how is that a failure?
Right. Oh, no. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a failure. What I'm saying is there are a few things that aren't being considered. Number one is and you look at the percentages, first, if you step back, Hilton gets something like 56% of its total revenue from members of its rewards program, right? So it's a disproportionately large share of their business.
Yep.
The individuals booking through OTAs, which is the behavior that they are wanting to change, right? That's only like 15% or something, 20%. So what they did as a strategy was to hypothetically discount everybody to affect the behavior of a relatively small portion of the business. Those numbers, the discounting of all these people who would normally be happy to pay full rate and parity rate, that's not considered in there, and that is a freaking big number. And I haven't run through it. I'll probably write something up. There's something new that's being launched at Focusrite, which is going to be very, very, very cool, and I'm participating with. I can't talk about it yet because we're embargoed, but that may be my first article for it, because that is a freaking huge number that they aren't considering, and that has to be considered. And love Cindy to death. I think what she's doing in terms of getting the hoteliers to look at the net cost of really what is the true complete kudos for that. That is 10,000%. I'm completely behind.
Needed.
And also they mentioned the customer lifetime value. Absolutely 10,000% behind that. The challenge on this particular strategy, though, that my negatives are is one, you're giving discounts to a bunch of people who didn't want them, and you're training a bad behavior. You're training people to look for the discount and confusing it for loyalty. All they're doing is saying it's free to sign up for this program. And this is not unique. The people who are signing up for the Hilton program are the same people who are signing up for Marriott. If they're brand agnostic and they used to book through an OTA, right? That's fine. They'll just sign up for the programs. It's free. It's not that hard. But it doesn't give them loyalty and make them keep coming back to Hilton. It keeps them booking that rate if they happen to book a Hilton.
And
but that doesn't mean if Hilton, what?
It makes
well,
them
not if they're discounting people.
No, that's what the report said, though. With the discounting, even with the discounting, it makes them more profitable.
Only on that small set of people, and it doesn't include everyone else who's getting discounts. Because again, you're only the share shift that they are looking at that discount is those 15% of the people who were booking through OTAs, and that revenue giving them a discount so they don't do that anymore. They come direct, right? That is the behavior they're trying to change.
Yeah.
So, but they are discounting everybody else as well.
Yeah. See. Go ahead, Holly.
And that number needs to be considered. And there is a chapter at the back that says this isn't such a rosy picture in the document, and it kind of got not covered over in the review. But I think that is a big number that needs to be understood. And the owners that I talked to are saying they aren't seeing it. Sort of thing. The other thing is
data suggests otherwise, and I'm certain that they all considered the people that would book as when they made the decision on this strategy. The alternative was not to embark on this strategy.
No, this is a great program for brands. Not a good program for owners.
Well, no, I hear.
How can you say that?
Well, I know how you can
Pretty
say that.
easily.
I know exactly how you can say that. So I'm going to make Robert's argument, and then I'm going to
Owners
poke
are
it full of
paying
holes.
for it.
Right. That's why it's a good. Right. The owners have to pay.
The owners are funding. The owners are
The owners are funding
the
this.
reinforcement of Hilton's and Marriott's and whoever else has this strategy.
Right. Here's the thing. It's going to be good for some owners. It's going to be bad for some owners. That's the reality with any kind of
true.
rewards program, right?
Yeah, there may be
because you have properties where people earn and you have properties where people burn. And if you're a property where guests earn, you are always funding the points and rarely getting the benefit on the burn side. If you're a place where properties burn, you're doing great because you're getting guests, depending on how they structure the payments and things along those lines, but you're getting guests who may not have stayed with you otherwise and getting the rate that you get for those guests on the burn side. So it is not great for the folks who are earn-only types of properties, right? Mm-hmm. If you are a place where you are both an earn and burn, it's probably a wash. In all seriousness, it probably, you're funding it, but you're also making it back on the rate you get when the people stay with you, What is true? Here's the thing I want to go back to, and I want to be very straightforward about this. I mentioned I got in at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I've not read the study, so I can't respond to anything in the study or not in the study. I'm just talking about what I know from talking to owners and talking to people like that. What we know to be true is, and Robert, if you write something up that pulls this apart, you should definitely consider this as well, because your point is very well made. I think that's a valid, point that has to be considered. I also think it's true that one of the challenges many properties have today, many hotel companies have today, is there was some earlier research a couple of years ago, and it might have been from Kalibri. I forget who did this, but I'm pretty sure it was Kalibri, or it was AHLA, and Cindy was one of the authors, that talked about where people start versus where they book. And go figure that if people started on an OTA, they booked on an OTA. And if they started on a brand site or on an individual property site, they were much, much more likely to book on the brand site or the individual property site. The weird takeaway from that one that is a little obvious but kind of got missed, I think, it's sort of that so obvious it got overlooked, is that people who started on an OTA often never went to a brand site at all. Right? And if you don't go to the brand site at all, you can't book there. Right? Mm-hmm. So if this does a good job of bringing people to the brand site that would not have gone there in the first place, that's an opportunity to gain additional revenues. And that's what they're seeing, at least in the exec summary, which is the only part of this I've kind of skimmed, of $9 to $33,000 per property. And that's a big deal, right? Now, are they paying for that? Yes, they are. But to Holly's point a moment ago, which I think is very well made, this is stuff they may not have gotten at all in the first place, because those folks may have started at the OTAs and may never have come to the brand site and never booked. So
I didn't make that point. You did, so that was a little bit funny.
Well, no, you were saying, what about the folks who wouldn't have bought, right?
Right.
I mean, if part of this is bringing people into the top of the funnel in a way that may not have existed before, and I was skimming through this real quick. This is absolutely true. Late in the thing, these don't have page numbers. Oh yeah, they do. Page 26. They make all these points. A larger member base is more likely to recur, creates a more resilient business foundation to weather difficult economic times, and that's absolutely true.
And I want to hang on to that thought.
So all of that wrapped up. Some of this is investing for the future too.
Well. Okay, but I would argue that is a good point for true loyalty, where there is a connection on the brand and they have a preference for that brand over another brand, as opposed to
if you got a bunch of points, you're going to have to.
I want to jump in. I want to jump in on something. I want to do something before we lose context of something. I want to keep the point you just made, Tim, because I wanted to make it in a different circumstance.
Yeah,
we're assessing the success or failure or scorecard in our current traditional modeling of how we consider value proposition of these campaigns. And to quote Star Trek out of The Wrath of Khan, when Spock leans over to Kirk and says, he's a brilliant tactician, but he thinks in two dimension, we're still looking at this from a very fundamental, practical, how we perceive success or not success. The real value, and this is to some of our later points in the show later on about changes in methodologies of blocking ads and so forth, and this ability to retarget and retract. The value proposition of being able to identify, quantify, and keep in communication the data associated with these membership, which I agree with you, Robert, is a mock term. It is not it's not a loyalty program. I'm sorry, loyalty is a mock term. It's just a means of methodology of keeping the data together. That value proposition has yet to be defined, and it was referred to, as you said, Tim, on page 26, which is the business proposition. This really hasn't become fully formed yet, because being able to communicate with these people now, what they do is. Okay, I know there's holes in that. I know there's holes in that.
No. There's not a hole in that. I'm just going to poke at one thing you said specifically. I think it's incredibly fully formed. I haven't worked for a chain in almost 7 years. And I can tell you, when I worked at the chains that I worked at, we knew exactly people who were part of our loyalty program, which was absolutely a rewards program, booked with us more often. We knew absolutely the propensity. It's just like Amazon Prime when we were talking about that a moment ago. Amazon Prime people shop at Amazon more. Right. So it is whether Robert, I'm going back to Robert's point. I agree with you that it's not loyalty in the sense that I'm loyal to Apple. At the same time, it does absolutely shift behaviors.
Well,
I'm not disagreeing with that.
But I would say before the discounts were offered, that was, I believe, more true. Before the discounts were offered, because again, with these discounts, they've all seen massive numbers of people coming into the program, right? And they're assuming that those behaviors will be identical to all the previous members.
I don't think they assume that.
Oh, I do.
I don't.
Absolutely.
I agree with Robert on that one.
I think the people are putting this together have some strategic thinking behind them. I mean, I think Hilton has a long-range plan for this. I don't think this is something they were like, let's give it a shot.
Just like we're struggling over interchangeable terms of membership versus loyalty, they can't run both paths. If they're going to really see the value exercise in this, they need to make it a rewards program or make it or a loyalty program and go for the value propositions that each should independently represent. But to my point, the success or failure, the long-term value propositions that has yet to be played out is how successful are the brands at molding this engagement value that they've created into a future value that has yet to be defined.
Right. To create return visits, higher net promoter scores, that sort of thing. Things that you can measure that say, we are actually going to increase customer lifetime value through this process. No. And for Hilton, and I understand why Hilton's doing this. This is very good for Hilton because Hilton isn't spending the money on it. Okay? It's the owners who are spending the money on this. They are funding this program far and away, much more than Hilton's share of it. Hilton is taking a little bit of a hit on the discount for their fees. Yeah, but the owners are carrying the large chunk of this. And yes, the brands are advertising it and doing that, but this is being funded by the ownership group. Okay, so for the brands, understand why they do it. It's brand positive, owner neutral to maybe negative. I don't know.
Holly, you wanted to say, there's parts of what Robert said that I agree with, parts that I don't, but
just sort of as an aside, why do you say that the Amazon Prime membership is any more of a loyalty program than Hilton honors? It's not. You're not in it. You're in Amazon Prime, not necessarily for the discounts, but for the speed, which actually
there are benefits.
Would normally pay for. I mean, it does come down to discounting. You'd normally pay for the speed of delivery. That's $99.
You pay for the program. Right?
I know.
And that's the key to Amazon Prime. When people put money into it, yes, then they have investment, they have skin in the game, and that's why people use Amazon. They go, I've paid for it, so I might as well use it, and I'll just do this. And they love it because it's so fast and it's so convenient. They have
Let's throw one other thing into the conversation.
I'm trying to find this. I can't find it right now, so don't quote me. Don't quote me on the exact numbers. But Holly, basically, people who are members of Prime spend significantly more. I don't know what the number is, but a ton more than people who are not members.
And you just said it's the same for brands, hotel brands. It absolutely is the same. We've seen that. No, if you're a loyalty member, you come more frequently and you spend more money.
But everybody's a loyalty member of everything.
But you're a member of all the programs.
Because it's been a tease out. They join everything. There's not an everything Amazon Prime.
They join all of them.
But their memberships.
Look what New York Times and Washington Post are doing. They're actually successfully creating a pay-for content model. Before, it was supposed to be the death of newspapers, and they're actually able to create a pay-for content market program. They've emerged as the phoenix out of this, where they thought all the newspapers were going to die because the content's already out there for free. Why pay for a newspaper? They're now beginning to able to segment their ability for paid content versus non-paid content. They're putting payment gateways. So that's a model that hasn't even been exercised in our field of space yet. To Robert's
Actually,
point,
it has, by the way.
Oh, has it? Okay, where?
Leading hotels of the world. It's a paid loyalty program.
Absolutely.
And it's a very successful paid loyalty program.
I forgot all about Leading.
Yeah.
But the idea
Leading's been doing that for a long time, actually. And it's
eventually, this may be a model type that comes into play or something. To Robert's point, to add the value proposition to it. But hotels right now, membership is a dime a dozen, and as long as they keep just giving a free bottle of water, it's not going to get much more than that. They have to mold this into something different to keep the relationship valuable to the people that have signed up to do this, minus a different rate program.
And Holly, everything you said about people at hotels who are members of loyalty programs spending more with the hotels is true, but it's not apples to apples. And here's why. Well, here's why it's not apples to apples. Share of wallet. Your share of wallet on Amazon as a Prime member compared to any of the other online retailers is, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 100%. Right? I mean, it's dramatically higher, right?
Online retailers, not retailers. Online retailers.
Online retailers, right?
Yeah, I'll go.
And so the your share of wallet there is huge. The problem we have in this country with loyalty programs, right, which are rewards programs, is that there are 3 billion loyalty memberships in the United States. Right. How many loyalty programs are in the hospitality industry are you a member of?
All of them.
All of them. Right.
Without a doubt.
Because you spend more. Well, then that's just it. You spend more because you travel more. So you join them because you may as well get the points anyway. And the reality is, it's not that the points, it's the share of wallet. I stay with Hilton. I am a Hilton Honors member. I like Hilton Honors. I stay with Hilton every chance I get.
So do I.
Okay. Except when I can't get a Hilton, or the Hiltons are sold out, or the rate at the Marriott is a little better, or the rate at the Wyndham is a little better.
That's the key. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not loyal to Hilton. I'm loyal to the reward.
Right. And that's why that's why Marriott bought Starwood. Yeah. And the folks that I was working with who were considering that acquisition and evaluating it, about 40% of Starwood's value was SPG. Right. They had a big problem of selling that. They couldn't break up that company because the rewards program was so valuable, and because it was very rich too. It's still
they even got quoted. The reason why they're buying it was because of the membership program.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to step back for 1 second. I don't know the answer to this off the top of my head because I do work with some chain properties, obviously, some chain management groups and the like, but I work with more independents than chain stuff, right? So I don't know the answer to this, but here's the question I would ask for you, Robert, when we talk about the discount and all. Mm-hmm. What is the cost to the owner compared to the cost to an OTA booking? Right. And that's the analysis that needs to be done. They need. So I'm saying my critique owners are perturbed because it's costing them more to get this guest than it used to.
No. They're discounting. They're
costing them more in the discount is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That goes back to the long-term value of the membership reward program. What do they do with this new relationship build that they've created for this is really going to be the real measure of success. Right. Now, not in the current report. As good as the report is, it's the future tense. That's one shoe. Now where's the other shoe?
And now they have trained people. And Tim, you made the point that you're loyal to Hilton until Marriott has a lower rate. Now, again, that's when you're spending your money out of your own pocket. The vast majority of these
corporate policy of people when I'm traveling for a client and I have to adhere to their corporate policy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm going to get my points no matter what.
Imagine how crazy it would be. Imagine how crazy it would be if you were loyal to Holly, this is to you. If I was a Hilton Rewards member, loyal to Hilton in the context that you believe it to be, and Hilton said, look, even if you don't get to stay with us, wherever you stay, we'll compensate you for the difference because you couldn't choose us that time. Wow. Now what an amazing difference would it be for you to be loyal to Hilton compared to, because then at that point, you're going to want to stay with Hilton, and you're
Well,
always
no,
going to
here's my litmus test. Hang on. Here's my litmus test. You're loyal to Hilton. How much of a premium are you willing to pay to stay at a Hilton because you're loyal to them?
Exactly that.
Well, that's what the next step
Exactly.
would be. If they split the cost of it,
I'm
where's
so
the threshold?
loyal. I'm looking for 10% off.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
not
Where's that
loyalty.
threshold? If I said, if I paid for entirely compensating for you to stay to another hotel, and then if I said I only pay for half of it, or if I pay for a third of it or a quarter of it, where do you finally say, it's not really worth it because I'm still spending more money with you? There's a threshold of cost somewhere.
You just bought a $1,000 phone. You could have bought a Pixel and put $400 in your pocket. That's loyalty. I mean, in all sincerity, right?
Right. No,
there
agree.
are
I totally agree with
individual
that. My point is, Amazon is no different. You're not loyal to Amazon.
Amazon's
Amazon
very
is
different.
not
Amazon's
an
incredibly
admirable
different.
company.
Amazon
It's
is a
an admirable
behavior
company.
modification service.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I'm totally loyal to Amazon.
And they pay for it.
And I pay to be loyal to them. I am absolutely 100% loyal to Amazon.
You don't pay to be loyal to them. You pay.
Yes, I do. I pay $99 a year.
Because you're going to order stuff online from somebody, and if you pay that, you're going to get your shipping for free. You're going to more than make back that money.
I'll add a couple of things. I'll add a couple of things to that. I stopped using eBay.
This afternoon.
I was a heavy eBay user until I had to keep dealing with different vendors and different ways they package stuff and different deliveries and different shipping. And it was so frustrating. Amazon is like, it's going to come, and it's going to come in a certain box, packed a certain way, and the timetable is correct, and it's not somebody that hodgepodge newspapers from China in there. It's, and because of that, I'm loyal to Amazon because the quality of what my relationship is, I get the reason why people love McDonald's when it first came out as a brand. It was this frequency of consistency.
It's
there
consistent,
used to be a website.
No.
There used to be a website that I can't remember the name of it. I'm looking for it. It may not exist any longer. Their best book buys, right, was a meta search engine for it doesn't exist any longer. Best book buys was a meta search for shopping the prices of books online, right? And you would look for a book, it would give you the best price, and then you'd go and buy it. Some of them had free shipping, some of them didn't. Amazon had free shipping. Sometimes they didn't. It depended on the thing back in the day, right? Okay. Amazon was the one I always went to because they always had the book, even if it was $1 more. You know what I mean? Like, it was the point I became loyal to them because I knew I could get what I wanted. I didn't have to shop around. I didn't have to deal with worrying about what policy was. If I just had my credit card on file. It was just easy. I was loyal to them. For anything that I buy these days, almost anything that I buy that I'm going to buy online, I start at Amazon. I do, and I'm not the only one where that's true. That is loyal
where Google
behavior.
is hurt, and where Google has lost a considerable amount
it
of
could also be
share.
called operant. It could also be operant behavior too. You get familiar that's your first stop, just like going to the OTAs first to see what's in the market, and then you finite it down when you start making comparisons. So it's an operating
absolutely.
yeah.
Right. Okay. So,
but that's why I'm loyal to them.
Well, okay. Let's talk about all consumers, right? All consumers throughout time have only wanted 4 things to really get elemental on this. One is selection, right? They want the stuff that Amazon addresses that. Hotel brands making you go to a hotel website does not. That actually reduces your selection. Now you can argue Marriott has lots of brands, Hilton's adding lots of brands, but it's not, the selection is not as good as an OTA. Right,
that is absolutely true. I have a point about selection in a minute, but go on, Robert.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a negative on that. Number 2 is convenience. Amazon absolutely nails convenience, right? So again, with the brands versus the OTAs, you go, okay, well, once I get into the booking, it's just as convenient, I guess. I could argue that maybe the OTAs are a little bit better in terms of user interfaces, speed, responsiveness of the websites, things like that. But okay, maybe you call that a drug. The third one is speed. The convenience is more you can get the stuff immediately, right? Or I should say let's take out speed. I'm blending them. Convenience is it's easy, right? Yep. That's the third one is speed. It's fast, and maybe that is the user interface of when you're booking it. But can you get the stuff faster? I say that one's really kind of a draw. The hotels aren't doing anything on that. And then the last one is value, and that's the one that I think is the real That's the smoker for the hotel brands, because value is the benefits that you receive divided by the cost. And those benefits can be a lot of different things. It can be enjoyment, right? It can be impact of I'm making a difference by doing this. It can be information. It can be quality. It can be service. It can be time. It can be all sorts of different benefits you get from these things. But that's the real key. What my critique of the hotel groups is they lowered the cost a little bit. That's how they tried to increase the value, and in most cases that decrease in cost is only 2%. It's not very much, right? Because they say you can discount up to 10%, which again I have a problem with, because you're setting expectations of a 10% discount and disappointing people when they find out it's only 2%. And then you get into does it really make a difference? If I am brand agnostic, I'm looking for the lowest price. And I'm a member of Hilton and Marriott and Hyatt and everybody else. What do? Do I go to each one of those brand websites independently to try to find what the member-only price is? Or do I go to an OTA, go across and go, you know what? It's convenient. It's going to save time. I'll just book it. And these other discounts just aren't enough to really win I'm not getting enough benefit for that cost, the cost reduction, and I'm going to spend more time. Screw it, right? I'm just going to book through.
But that's
OTA.
not what happened. They didn't just book through the OTA.
Okay.
They booked through the brands, as the report said.
One other critique I have.
Let Holly. Go ahead, Holly.
No. That's all I had to say. It did work. That 2% to 10%, it worked, as the report shared.
We are missing the front load versus back load
one
cost
other key data thing. What's the time frame for that report? May to December. Why didn't they do a full year? First quarter is normally kind of the rough.
They didn't launch it in May. I mean, they didn't launch it January 1.
Oh, some of these have been around for 2 years
They
now.
could have done, Polly, they could have done May 1 to April 31.
Hilton was ahead of it because they got the Adrian Awards even.
No, they started in May. They started in May. That's when they were started. The ending time of the evaluation was December. Why didn't they go a full year? Because first quarter's a little rough.
I see what you're saying.
I think you look at the numbers for a full year.
Right.
I don't think they look as good. Personally, I don't know.
Come on, Robert.
I would think. No. Hey,
you might be right. You might be wrong.
Robert definitely.
Whoa, Holly, whoa. Right now, I'm going to call pedigree on this. I changed Four Seasons pricing strategy in the 80s. Okay,
bingo.
That's why Four Seasons. Bingo. Yeah, bingo. That's why Four Seasons doesn't discount, because we went through it. We looked at loyalty and we figured out we are doing it wrong. Okay, and I would say that's worked fairly successfully for Four Seasons for that strata of the market and everything like that. I'm not saying a blanket for the hotel industry, but I have lived this stuff for a long time. Okay, now the key is of looking at this. You have to look at the hotel industry on a 52-week moving average basis. If you aren't, you're doing it wrong, because it does. And you look at a lot of these. True. And there are a lot of groups out there that do not do that, and it's crap. And that's exactly why you see STR's numbers when they come out. They do their projection. You see PricewaterhouseCoopers. You see CBRE. They always come out with this, and then they start ratcheting down because they aren't looking at these full things. You've got to look at that 52-week moving average.
84% of all statistics are made up right on the spot.
Yeah.
No, well, I always thought it was 87.3.
The other side of this is the vast majority of that. The vast majority of this membership's capture, right, of revenue has nothing to do with unattached, free individual travel. It's corporate travel, which is booked through a GDS. It's coming because you work for IBM. It's booked through American Express Travel. It's going to Hilton. Most of these reward programs were originally structured to convert corporate travel spend into personal benefit, right? That was the gamification that started all of this, okay?
Right.
So again, those corporate rates aren't impacted by this discounting, right? They are off to the side as well. Okay, that's not coming. So what I'm looking at is they're discounting all these individual business travelers out here. Everybody now gets a discount who's playing to affect the behavior of less than a fifth of the travelers who are doing it wrong, I look at that strategically and go, I don't like it. You need to make some compelling arguments. And when you come down and say, yeah, we kind of see 8% off of 12,000 hotels. Okay, not the greatest sample size. I think it has worked.
Robert, I'm going to push back. I'm going to push back
somewhat
hard
transactionally, but I am very skeptical on a long-term basis that this is a successful thing, unless what Lauren says is they start doing some things to really add on the value.
And I think that's what I'm saying, though. I do believe Hilton, this is part of their long-term strategy. This was phase one, but they have intentions and plans and initiatives in place to continue along the spectrum, and also make sure that the new loyalty members they've gotten, they're retaining. I don't think it's a one-shot deal. Let's just discount. I think everybody knows that doesn't make sense.
And that's
but what
good.
I'm saying is,
my question is, and who pays for that increase in benefit?
Yeah, but this is where I'm going to push back hard. Sorry, wait, hold on. I'm going to push back really hard on this for a second, because this is one place where I get a little torqued. There's a reason why I work with independents a lot, right? And what we're talking about right here is the reason. I love hotel owners. God bless hotel owners, right? But you can't get something for nothing. If you want to drive pure value, and by the way, Robert, I agree with you completely. Don't discount. Give people value adds, whatever, you know, but don't discount. I completely agree. Okay? All right. You want to drive real value. You need to invest in creating a differentiated experience. You need to invest in making something better. So you know what? You cannot drive true loyalty for free. You can buy it, which is what they're doing right now, or you can invest in giving people a better experience, better service, better product, etc., to such a point where they go, that I'm willing to pay more for. Right. And if people are just bitching because it costs them more money to buy those guests, well, what's your alternative? Are you going to take that money and put it into your product? Are you going to take that money and put it into training your staff? Are you going to take that money and put it into improving your service experience? Because if you're not going to do that, then you may as well buy the customer's loyalty. Because otherwise, you're commoditized product and you're only going to compete on price. And that's simply it.
And I'm not going to period. I'm not going to try to make a conspiracy theory out of this statement, but consider the people that Kalibri works with, the data that they're pulling. A negative report is not a real affirmation.
Well, and I'm not saying that. No, I'm going to be fair to Kalibri because I don't think it's anything conspiratorial. I think they get data from large hotel companies. The data is what the data is. Exactly. Where they're pulling the data from. And how the data is being interpreted is based on the fact of the source of the data. And the source of the data is brand-based, and the brand-based is what this effort was. And to Robert's point, why isn't it a year? And secondly, the value proposition is after a year, an evaluation of what's being changed by it is much more important than just the effect of what it caused during the year that it was recorded, even if it was for a year.
And if you look deep into the report, there are basically 14 to 17% of the brand.com room nights and 28 to 30% of the OTA room nights were below the revenue performance that was forecast by the regression model. So this is one of the negatives, right? This is this whole kind of leakage of these benefits. And again, that wasn't really quantified and put in these total numbers, right? So overall, it's like, yeah, we bought a bunch of new members sort of thing. We baited them with a discount and they converted, somewhat. But again, from my conversations with owners, they aren't seeing developers. They are not seeing.
And my question, but the question I would ask those developers, the question I would ask those developers, Robert, is explain what you're going to do as the alternative. I mean, realistically, right?
Right.
I want to go back to your point about selection and things along those lines. One of my favorite business strategy things comes from Jeff Bezos, right? Again, Amazon loyal, right? He's got a great question, which is, people always look about what's going to change in the next 10 years. And he said the thing that he did when he started Amazon was he looked at what won't change. Mm-hmm. And the things that won't change are, and I'm reading this because I want to make sure I get these right. People want fast delivery. They want vast selection. They want low prices. Yep. He said, you're never going to hear somebody say, I just wish prices were a little higher, or I wish you'd deliver a little more slowly. Right. It's not going to happen.
Right, and
You
that's
know,
a selection, convenience, value.
absolutely.
And
Well,
speed. Yeah, that's they always want. Yeah.
I posted a link to a post that I wrote a while ago, but it's something I've talked about for years. It's how people make the value triangle in, as I call it, in travel. You know, it's price, proximity, and and quality, where quality could include amenities and things like that. Right? I'm using that as a kind of a catch-all. These days, I've actually expanded it to price, proximity, quality, and qualities. Right? But it's the same basic idea. Here's something I knew when I worked at Wyndham, and I can probably share this. I haven't worked there in over a decade. You know, selection matters more than most people might think when we talk about conversion, because you get a lot more opportunities to say yes, right? So we had very large brands where we had 2,000 properties, and we had small brands where we might have 200 properties. And the conversion rate was almost a straight line. The correlation was essentially 1 between the system size and the conversion rate, right? The more properties we had, the higher the conversion rate was. Obviously, whenever we made changes to the sites, we were able to grow the conversion rate for everybody, but it was always just a straight line function. The ones that had fewer properties converted worse, because when people said, "Can I get a room there?" the answer was no too often, right? So that's a place where the OTAs always win. Always, they're going to have more selection.
Sold out, or it's too expensive, or it's not.
No. But I'm saying if you're Marriott, but if you're Marriott, you might have, let's take a big market like New York City. Let's take Midtown Manhattan, because proximity plays a role. I don't just want to be someplace. I want to be, near to where I have to be, whether it's because I'm there for leisure or whether I'm there for business. So if I look for Midtown Manhattan, there might be 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 Marriott properties within a 5-10 block radius. I don't know the exact number. It doesn't matter.
Could be 20. Yeah,
it could be 20. Right. Okay. If I look at Expedia, it's going to be 100. Right. It's going to be 5 times that. It's going to be 8 times that. So Expedia is going to convert better. But here's the thing, and I think this is really critical. Again, not having read the study, so maybe I'm way off on the wilderness here. But the simple fact is, if this is bringing people to Marriott.com, if it is bringing people to Hilton.com, if it is bringing people to those sites, they get more opportunities to say yes than they did yesterday. Yes, they're paying for that, but the alternative is they've got to invest in the product and the service to differentiate it. So one way or the other, the properties are going to end up paying for that, period. Right? I mean, fundamentally. So you can do that, or you can be a commodity box of rooms. One of those has a future.
Yeah.
Where's the microphone? Because I'm going to drop it.
That you should. I just emailed Cindy and said, "Please, will you come on our show?" She'll come on.
Yeah. No, and I'm not saying the stuff that Cindy's telling. I am completely in support of. You've got to understand the bottom line net operating income impact of these marketing programs. The industry has to get to that point, because right now it's really clouded, right? And most hotel owners and operators, they don't really have that. There's a lot of fluff spinning around.
This isn't to pass disparagings on anybody that attended any rocket programs or anything, but past conversations outside of those, and just in general at conferences, it's very hard to find people to even understand or to even know how to calculate lifetime value of a guest.
Oh, yeah.
It's an unknown quantity to them. It's like a passing art, as well as much as displacement cost. I mean, there's so few people now that I know that actually can math out displacement values. You know, they may use a program that the brand provides them or something like this, but for the most part, they can't mentally math out a displacement cost, or in this case, the lifetime value of a guest. And that goes back to the same question we're talking about with loyalty, is that it's not being approached from the lifetime value per se yet in a measurement now. It's really just the short-term impact that's created. The long-term value of what they're doing and what they do with it, I think, is still the paramount, yet to be discovered aspect of this. And to Calibri's point, it's pointing out, based on the data it's pulling, that there's an impact to this that can be perceived the way we've discussed it, but the long-term impact of it, or the value proposition, is really yet to be defined.
Yeah, no, and I think the big challenge with this is the ultimate thing that the hoteliers or the brands are trying to do is to try to force a change in the economics with the OTAs. they want to pay them less, right? Because there's a virtuous cycle that the OTAs were developed that was very, very effective, predominantly Expedia acquiring originally hotel reservations network into, hotels.com and Travelscape, and all those acquisitions was they vertically integrated the wholesale and retail component, and they were able to take 20% instead of 10%. People forget when Expedia launched and Travelocity launched, they were 10% retail commission models. That was it. Right.
Robert, I agree with you, but I think your history is leaving out something. I mean, don't forget what really happened was, and I mean, it is when they brought on HRN and the like, but it was the introduction of the net rate programs, and it was facilitated by the fact of record low occupancies after 2001. I mean,
but even before, in the roll up to that, the success of HRN and Travelscape were making a big dent at that point already.
A big dent. I mean, they were growing at rapid paces, but they were growing from zero, right? When you grow from 0% to 1%, that's infinitely large growth. One of the reasons,
compared to the OTAs at that time with their pure retail programs, they were big too, right?
Yeah.
Online in terms of online bookings, they were kicking the ass.
Online, but online back then was 3%.
Oh no, I mean, I agree. That was small, but
and again,
the business
model. A lot of this changed. What changed this enormously? I mean, there's not one factor, right? It's
right.
The internet got bigger, just by nature of internet getting bigger.
Right.
Two.
Seinfeld.
Two, there was a pretty major recession following 9/11 that caused guests to be more price conscious shoppers.
Absolutely.
Right. That probably wouldn't have been true.
Right.
Let's see. A to F. There was.
No. That's
there was traffic acquisition, right? Like there was a lot of energies there. The hotel brands underinvested in their online presence, and I know that one painfully well because I was there at the time running an online presence.
They did not give it. Yep.
Right. But we used to talk about the online guest versus the offline guest, as opposed to the fact that there were guests, right? Because in those days there were lots of people who didn't book online. So the point I'm trying to make is that it wasn't any one thing; it was a whole host of things that acted in concert that lead to the reality of when you aggregate all the content, when you aggregate all the information, when you do all this stuff, you're in a better position. And the OTAs were ultimately enabled to be in a better position, and then when they control access to the customers, they get to charge whatever they want. And that's really what came about from this. HRN absolutely played a role, the acquisition of HRN, but so did 10 other things.
Well,
here's the world we're in right now. And the reality is, if you're going to beat the OTAs, I have clients that I work with who beat the OTAs every day. We have a 5%, share of OTA, 5%.
Right.
If that, right. And it's not because of anything I'm doing from a marketing perspective. It's because these are great hotels and they don't need to go to the OTAs because they actually have loyal guests.
Right. Yeah, because they have a differentiated product and it's a better.
They have a differentiated product. Right. I mean,
no. And my point is bookings.nl, right, which was the predecessor of Booking.com, was an 8% retail sort of agency. And what's happened is a virtuous cycle was created where they could expand their margins because Booking could go from 8% over these years to 15%.
But they could go to 15 but they could also go to 15 because it was still a lot damn cheaper than paying Expedia 22.
That's right. Oh no, absolutely. Right. Oh no, Expedia did Booking.com the greatest service of trying to take their U.S. model and force it into Europe, which I understand strategically why they did that, because the U.S. was always, the U.S. was always 2 to 3 years ahead of Europe. So they just figured, well, this is just going to happen. It's going to roll in over there. And it was like, oops, different dynamic with, again, lack of brands, right? Because the brands are the ones who really did create the OTA, the OTA programs, right? Because they're coming and going, we're in on this. It's a 15% discount for this, and it's a such and such for that, and it's across the board. And here are 25,000, 30,000 hotels all behaving very uniformly. So, the hoteliers or the brands created it, the problem, and now because we are at peak occupancies, we are at record all-time occupancies in 80.
But the brands created it because owners were hurting for occupancy.
Absolutely. Oh no.
And it wasn't 50, and it wasn't 15% back then. It was 20. It was 22. It was 25.
Right, but not on Booking.com. Yeah. No. Oh no.
No. On Expedia.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And
Sure.
Expedia was the only game in town.
Oh no. And Booking.com.
Expedia, and Travelocity, and Orbitz, and the like. But I mean, the reality was, we needed occupancy.
Right. And those brands would go, it would be the same thing. It would be one program for simplification to the properties, right? You go, here's the general program. And yes, Orbitz qualifies. Orbitz qualifies, Travelocity qualifies. Everybody qualifies because they have a program. They're hooked up to Pegasus. Good. We can convert.
Yep.
We've got X. And yes, so all that. But that virtuous cycle of that increased margin going to the intermediaries fueled the ability for them to advertise and enhance their systems and do all that.
I disagree, Robert. You got carts and horses backwards there.
That margin
venture capital is what enabled them to advertise. Capital markets is what enabled them to advertise. They were making more money on the sale, or didn't have to be as profitable on the sale at the time because it was cool and it was neat, and the market was like, "We're going to invest in this like crazy."
Okay. Yes.
I mean, realistically, that's what enabled it.
In terms of access to capital,
they had an audience, but because they had an audience, when 9/11 happened, hotels were going, "We are empty.
Right.
Someone help us." And Expedia said, "We can help you because we have an audience."
Right.
And you're going to give us a 25% margin. And you're going to give us LRA.
Absolutely.
And you're going to give, right? I mean,
I agree.
Pants time.
Right. Oh, no, absolutely. And the hoteliers were desperate. And then in 2004, Intercontinental stood up to them, right?
Right.
That was kind of
Jim got fired.
And Jim got fired. So, but through that,
the guy who pushed for IHG to drop out of the OTAs, they were out for a year. They were out for
3 years. 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And the guy who pushed for it lost his job.
Yeah. And he's a brilliant guy.
Left to spend more time with his family.
Yes, and he was a brilliant guy.
He is a brilliant guy.
Oh no,
and he was right. And he was absolutely right.
Just because you can be right and still wrong.
Right.
Well, no. Who was it? I can't remember. What was his last name?
Jim Young.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah. So, but still, those margins that they were able to get, which is what was attracting it, they were a higher margin business in these hotel brands and still are. That margin lets them go and churn this thing, which then you can spend between Expedia and Priceline, they're spending $8 billion on advertising, basically, and marketing, which dwarfs the hotel industry generally.
But also, don't forget, the hotel industry makes less money per reservation than the OTAs do.
Right.
Absolutely. Oh, no, and that's exactly what I'm saying. So this business model has been created. The hotel brands, supported. Well, no, they did.
Because they had to, because the owners needed occupancy. And I'm not defending it because I was there. I'm defending.
Oh, no. I realize why it happened. But now what they want is to change. They want to change the economics. It's the same thing Delta went through and United American when they cut out travel agency commissions. They needed to change the economic. It's why they have NDC with IATA for airlines, is because they're trying to squeeze the GDSs. I mean, they created those business models because they own the GDSs, right? And so now they want to change them because the model of supplier pays an intermediary that does a revenue share on the demand side. That's not great for suppliers. It's good for intermediaries. It's not great for suppliers. And everybody across the travel industry is trying to figure out, how do we change that model, right?
Go ahead,
and that's why Hilton and Marriott and these guys started to do it, and they decided to do it. We'll do it through a discount funded basically by the owners. Do it. It's not the brands funding it, and it's tough. It's a tough thing long term. I hope the hoteliers are successful, but I think they've trained some bad. I think they've trained some bad habits.
Go ahead, Ollie.
No. I'm laughing at Tim because he's frozen. The animation.
He is frozen.
He's not frozen. He's just thinking.
Oh,
no.
yeah. I think his internet probably went out. I was going to say, I think we should move on to Hopper.
Yeah, I would say there's two topics I do not want to lose track of. One is the Hopper change, and then the other is, of course, the new Chrome coming out and Safari's current change, obviously, on blocking out the ad programs and how Sojourn, Adara, they're going to get crushed. Well, not crushed. They're going to have to change their model an awful lot if they're going to be successful still because of what's going to happen. But anyway, let's start with Hopper first because it actually ripples across a couple of disciplines, not just marketing strategy, but revenue management. They're really going to have to rethink their processes on this one.
Well, yeah, the Hopper guys, again, access to capital, that Tim mentioned, they got a lot of funding early and a really, really long duration, even to launch their air product, and now going to hotels. I've seen it. I did a demo, actually, with Focusrite, we got a demo of it early on, which is great, from Frederick, who's their CEO. And Scott Brodos, who's running kind of their hotel acquisition things, are great guy, really smart guy. But
people watching,
their whole what's Hopper?
I'll get the links out. Yep.
Yeah, Hopper is basically an artificial intelligence based price recommendation booking engine, I guess would be the best way to describe it. They use intelligence, basically say, are you getting good prices or bad prices? Is this a good value? And here's things that you should buy. So I'm using AI to help them do that.
So they've been in the airline industry and they've been successful in the airline industry.
Relatively successful.
What do you mean?
I mean, they have a very good product. They aren't making a massive amount. I don't think Hopper's profitable, right? Yeah, I don't think they're generating. They had in all credit to them, they survived what's normally a fatal combination of too much investment at the beginning, and then normally you get investors who get really impatient and they kill the product or they do something to make you do bad things. They've hung in there, and which is remarkable. So that's a good a group like Duetto had kind of the same problem, right? They raised a lot of money and it took them a long time to get to 1,000 hotels, and they're still not profitable as far as I know, sort of thing. So there are lots of groups like that. I mean, you've got to kind of make the turn at some point. But yeah, so Hopper's done. They've got a good product for air. I mean, it does really pretty well. And again, when that stuff first started, it wasn't really Hopper who did it. It was Faircast.
Faircast, yep.
Who
Faircast
was a professor at the University of Washington. And
Microsoft ate them.
Yeah, way back in 2005, 2006. Yeah, well, they presented at the Focusrite conference, and I was standing in the back of the room with a bunch of GDS and airline guys who were laughing at him, right? By saying, hey, we've got all this data, we've looked at all these things, and we've figured out, through these kind of predictive analytics, where these airfares are going. We think this is really something. And they got Hugh Crean, who was with Priceline, the business development guy, again, really smart guy. They brought him in, and they kind of went off and running. Eventually got acquired by Microsoft. So yeah, that sort of thing is very interesting. Now they're trying to take that to hotels, right? And it's interesting how they're doing it and rolling it out. And I think if their investors are patient with it, it'll be pretty good. It's going to be expensive for them to do it the way they're doing it. But
yeah, but again, I don't think it's going to have. It didn't have, I should say, the impact on the airline industry as much as it will have potentially on the hotel industry if they can live through weather the storm. Because with the airline industry, it was never really an opaque problem that they had. It wasn't as if it was a surprise factor. It just was showing trending on pricing shifts. And most people, for any traveler, would begin to understand the pricing cycle pretty quickly anyway without
when time to buy. Yeah, is it a good time to buy or should I wait? Was kind of the
right. But with hotels, because we're so flinchy and market sensitive and competitive set sensitive and so forth, there's so many different strategies with individual hotels. It's not like you have 5 carriers going to the same airport, and those 5 carriers have a stranglehold on the feeder markets that they're mutually feeding from. So there's a compatibility issue and so forth. You have hundreds of hotels in a market that have hundreds of different strategies, and you have hotels that flinch and bail on their rates 72 hours out. Well, they do that enough time in this model, and it's going to show in this model, hey, don't buy it now. Wait until 72 for this hotel, and boom, you're going to get a better price. Yeah. And so if the market, if there's a collective move in the market, that's even going to amplify that more, because it's going to even tell you not just to wait the 72 hours, but wait the 7 days, because everybody in the market starts dropping their rates. And then that hotel in particular in 72 hours is really going to drop its pants. So and now revenue managers can't do this. Only the 10 hotels around me know with special software what I'm doing for rates. It's the world will now know that you tend to do this kind of thing when these circumstances come up for these dates. And that's the scary part that revenue managers have to consider.
And I would argue the OTAs are already pretty good at doing that with their analytics, right? Because they can start looking at the pricing and what goes on, and then start making decisions in terms of sort order and things like that. And because again, their job to sell across all these brands is like, give the consumer the best deal. I mean, it's like, hey, the Marriott Marquis, and I'm just making these numbers up, midweek should always have a $25 price premium over the Hilton, Midtown or something like, who knows? But on weekends, maybe it switches or whatever. They can start figuring those things out, and they start saying, oh, that's a good deal at the Marriott, and boom, that's how they went. Oh, well, also who's paying them and compensating, the whole different thing has nothing to do with the consumer. So there's a little bit of, this guy isn't as good, but they're going to the top of the list because they're paying us a lot.
Right.
So Hopper, I think it'll be really interesting, because in New York, they only have 30 hotels right now. Right. Or they may have a few more now, but that's not a huge sample. And they're highly curating it, which I really like. Because they aren't just kind of going out where here's everything and everybody. They're really trying to pick their spots to make sure they've got good data, and these are the properties, and these are the ones they want to work. It is kind of by invitation only. You can't just kind of hop in as a hotel. You've got to be kind of Hopper looking at going, that's a high demand property. We want to work with them, which is really kind of the original HRN model. Or if you look at Get a Room, how Littman and Diener, do that, is they start off with, these are the high demand properties who we can work with and really get the most out of. So they're trying to find differentiated properties, based on what Tim was saying, hotels that are different. They're providing value. It's not just garden variety.
Right, those are the modifiers that the airline industry didn't have to be considering, like whether there's amenity-based stuff that's add-ons, if there's ancillary costs, so there's a lot of modifications that still have to come into this model for it to be effective. But the end game of it is AI gets more introduced to more and more things, that you're going to have these kind of programs pop up like this that are going to say, we're going to give you a predictive modeling opportunity as a consumer to decide on more than just your random luck of picking and choosing and doing all this research. Right. We're going to do a lot of lead time for you to help you. And don't think that the OTAs are out of this conversation. They might very quickly just say, you know what, it seems to catch some traction. Let's just flip all the data we currently have into a more user-based interface on our platform, and we can show you the indicators of what you should at which hotel for what reason, and what the hotel's going to do. But they can't. They can't say, well, we're just not going to give you. They can't pull an IHG in 2004. They're just going to have to go, shit, we're going to have to keep a stability to our pricing model.
Right. So. Yeah, and it may be a nice foil to the OTAs, who again do stack the deck for hotels who compensate them more highly. I mean, you get moved up. I mean, no bones about it. Expedia is very clear, but I think Marissa Mayer, wrote an article that was not well received by the hotel industry, I think at T-News a year or two ago, that basically said, yeah, if you're a good partner with us, we're going to help you, sort of thing. And they're like, oh, they shouldn't do that. It's like, well, no, it's their business. And if you're going to go compensate them more, they probably, they're looking at what is their total revenue opportunity for this guest, right? You've got Lauren Gray, who's there looking to go travel to Seattle for 4 days, and they know he's brand agnostic or whatever. They don't care. They want to go, what's the best? Yes, we want to have something that Lauren's really going to like, but what's most profitable for us, right? And they kind of have to balance that out, and they may go, number one is the clear one, best for Lauren, and we'll put him in number one, but number two is really good for us.
Right, and that's where the eventual, the dark side of the AI process might be. We begin to trust these models to think they're doing the most unbiased data source to us based on their knowledgeable profile of us, but they also know our price resistance, our elasticity to demand that we have, and they might say, to your point, Robert, number one is best for him, but number two is better for us. So let's not talk about number one, or at least not put it number one. Let's just tell them this one. And that's where we begin to worry about the trust factor. Because to your point, just like any group salesperson, when somebody comes in representing a group, they feel like they have clout to negotiate compared to I'm an individual walking in for a room. What kind of clout do I have for a rate negotiation?
Absolutely.
So,
and they probably should. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, depending upon the value proposition of the client to these relationships, the amount of inventory they have to market, these become also variables into the model that's created that the user will interface with. Yeah. So just like we've slighted hotel for shading and so forth, where they're blocking out hotels because they weren't playing nice in the space, so they weren't being represented as equally on the OTAs. That may also eventually happen in this model as well.
Yeah, and the data availability for airlines is freaking amazing, right? Mm-hmm. Certainly, Google has some amazing stuff with ITA, and ITA's done stuff, but even just the GDSs, right? They have the old MIDT was marketing information data tapes back when it was on real tapes that they mailed to people, and BIDT, which is the billing information stuff. I mean, they have almost perfect information on origins and destinations, how many passengers are booking on what dates, going from what origin to what destination to what's a connection, what's a nonstop, and then a separate file, because they certainly wouldn't want to collude or put this together, because that would be competitive, right? And so not a lot of people in the airline industry go, well, you have several fare buckets open, can I buy out of a higher fare bucket? Because it doesn't really happen. So, but anyway, with that information, you get some really good, and that's how the airlines price their stuff. And it's centralized processes, highly disciplined, but still controlled by people who manage particular origins and destinations. I mean, getting more and more AI and computer oriented, but it really is kind of, what are we doing? Are we going to follow Spirit or Southwest or not? Right, that's kind of, we'll override it to go do this or that, because they start figuring out, yes, when we follow Spirit, it's good until X point in time when we break rank, right, and then we'll jack up the rate and go. Hotels, though, a lot more fragmented, much less disciplined. I mean,
I am hoping that
Hopper, it's going to be really hard for Hopper to do it as effectively as with Air.
See, I'm hoping that they have some level of success, because Hopper's great to scrape. You can scrape great data off of Hopper, and so because of that, you can scrape. Right now, I'm scraping a lot of airline rate data from feeder markets. You're tagging. I'm creating correlations between. Okay, I take the air carriers to a certain airline or airport that's a high profile from one of my clients, and we then coordinate the feeder markets that we know seasonally in their business cycle, and we see what lift is going up and down for these airlines. Because airlines are very smart, and they know whether they're going to add a multi-million-dollar aircraft to a lift because they can sell it or not sell it, and what their rates are doing. And we create correlations by scraping the rate data on Hopper's daily rate cycle off their website that shows the colors in each of the little squares and whether rates are going up or down. We keep scraping that data. We compare it against our historical rate cycles versus whether it's a positive or negative correlation, and we can interpret that when their rates change the way we think the correlation is going, we know how to adjust our rates for the same date cycle. So if they start doing this for hotels at some level of success, it's just like getting additional market data, because you're going to be able to go over and say, wow, we can see what they're going to be doing, and we can correlate it that way.
Right.
So,
and how many people will take advantage of that?
Who knows?
But again, that's a business model for Hopper to work with their guys and then help them make more informed decisions, which is fundamentally what Expedia and Booking.com and these guys do. I mean, that's in many cases what an Expedia market manager does, and as chastised as they may be, with a lot of these hoteliers, they're like, wait a second, you don't have to lower your rates. At this point, you can go up. They're like, you need to lower your rate to compete with these guys. And that's what the tools are, because they, Expedia does want people to pay the highest possible rate, because when they're getting a percentage, that's great for them, but they want to make that sale, right? And that's how do you convert the sale. So I think it's going to be very upper on the individual. It's a different constituencies, right? It's actually the doing something good for the consumer versus, is this good for the hotelier? The hoteliers have to get their act together, or this transparency will hurt them.
Okay, now I don't know whether your screen is the same as my screen, but Robert, you can't lean into it because we had a perfect symmetry I was tall, medium, low. So Holly's lowest in the screen. I'm tallest in the screen. You're middle of the screen. Yeah, when you lean forward, you're taller than me. I don't know if your screen looks the same, but we have this beautiful symmetry, right? That's like bizarre. But okay, the other topic I want
now we
to
can be like
miss. Now you're being like Holly. Oh nope, not Holly. Okay. But the other was the new. We talked about Safari and the new rollout for it about of canceling cross-domain tracking for them.
Yeah.
And now Chrome is coming up and saying their new edition of Chrome will also do the same, where they're going to stop the pervasive negative impact of force ads that come in. That the ads get shown up and you can't migrate or navigate past the ad unless you act something. The no thanks, the further information or whatever. That they're going to now just shut that capability off, which is bread and butter for a lot of large volume marketing platforms that they are invasive. They come in, they're triggered based on what they're tracking with you. And because of what they're tracking between platforms and what you're doing, they have this ability to insert, not just retargeting. That's a different thing. This is we tailor what we're showing you and we're making a pervasive force that you have to get past. And I mean, I'm sorry, but Sojourner and Dara are square in the crosshairs on that in my mind, because their model is going to be, now what? If we can't do what we're doing now and we can't do it on those platforms, we really reduce our value proposition to people that are paying us. Right. I know there's Sojourn's into the metasearch space. They have a beta going on right now with metasearch, which is great for me because it puts you right into the high level stuff that like SiteMinder won't let you get into Google Hotel Finder or TravelClick or TripAdvisor unless you're at a certain spend level with them. And Sojourn's walking around saying, hey, we'll offer the whole Pantheon since we already have a relationship with you. So I don't know what Adar is going to do after that or whatever, but hey, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at it from the, kind of the startup intermediate, tech company, and that's a problem. If your business model is based on a particular behavior of somebody like a Google or an Apple or a Facebook or something like that, and they change the rules on you, that is a risk. And so that's always a big kind of red flag when folks look at these from an investment perspective. Yeah, they're going to have to figure out how to change the business model. Now, again, they have some things where I don't know. I look at this mostly as a play for Google and Apple to get even more control over their ecosystems and to be able to start providing this and then get a vig out of it and to either do it themselves or offer these things and to squeeze out some of these intermediaries who are capturing a lot of value and data basically off the benefit of Apple or Google. Because the bottom, I mean, Sheryl Sandberg is driving. I really like Sheryl Sandberg with Facebook when she comes up and says they're not a media company. It's like, come on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 98% of your revenue is from advertising, and you're publishing content. And so you look at Google, and all these are advertising based. Now, Apple's a little different, right? Apple's like, we will never sell your data, so they can kind of take the moral high ground, sort of, because the moral high ground is we are going to build a walled garden around our stuff, and we control everything in the ecosystem. So not that benevolent.
Am I just being naive to think that this is being driven by the user experience?
No, it's not. It's
part of
the politics too. The politics right now.
Oh yeah.
The whole feel of the fact of, these ads were coming from outside countries, and they had no control. There was just a free open market that if you wanted to buy space, you could buy space. Nobody was watching the gate to see who was buying the ads, what the ad content was, as long as it didn't break guidelines of pornography or vulgar language or things like that they could advertise whatever they want to. Is now being changed to saying, no, we're not going to allow ads with that feeling. We're not going to allow ads that are going to diminish the user experience, and we're going to keep a closer eye on what these ads are actually doing. It's kind of like this, not vigilante, but this sentiment feeling that like we're going to be better at what we do. We're going to watch more of what we're at.
And there are two reasons. One, politically, and I mean, next week in Congress, Twitter and Facebook and I think Google are all going to be out there talking to the Senate and the House on public things about what's going on with the Russians or whoever interfering with whatever through advertising. Right. And the big fear of those large companies is that they come in and go, and the president has said maybe we should break them up. They do not like that sort of talk whatsoever. So they're putting some things in to say, hey, here's what we're doing to protect consumers, and we're doing this. Now, again, they don't want to change their business model where they have liability for someone who does the neo-Nazi God knows what that slips through, and then all of a sudden, they're liable for it. But when you're a media company, I mean, groups like the New York Times and stuff like that, in the old days, if they had a big ad for the neo-Nazi, whatever, that wouldn't make it in, probably.
Right.
And if it can sneak through, that's a real problem for these guys to.
Well, then you amplify that. You amplify that by the preference. The algorithm is based on you. We've had this in last week's show or the week before show, that the algorithm for Facebook is fundamentally flawed because it's based on popularity matrix. So as I like something, more of that content is being fed to me. So think about the high end of this. Any political or group can look and say, wow, if I walk over to Robert and say, Holly really doesn't like you, and this is the reason why. And then that same person goes,
I know all the reasons. Holly's already told me.
And then the same person goes over to Holly and says, Robert doesn't really, and he knows why. And you both see, and then you surround something that Robert's like, well, Holly never liked this. And that person's going, yeah, right. And here's some more information on why Holly doesn't like you. It begins to create this separation between, it polarizes. And at least with the newspapers, the same people, at least the people, good or bad, left or right, whatever, red or blue, we're looking at the same content. Well, now that newspaper is being divided to a red newspaper and a blue newspaper. And so they're really believing what they're watching.
Or television stations.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
and so, there's great, charts from Statistica that show, what shows and what channels get watched by red versus blue, segregation and so forth. Absolutely. But the idea now is that nobody was controlling the content at all. Right. As long as they're check cashed, the ads were going out, the content was being distributed. Right. And so now they're saying, to Robert's point, it's like, okay, well, we're going to watch that now. And on top of that, we're going to go over and close some doors that only we can control, because now we're going to use a different method of it later on.
And it's freedom of speech too, right? Because hey, I've got a weird, and Lauren who wants to bring about a Star Trek based society, and
what's so wrong with that? What is so wrong with that?
As I said, you can say no. I don't know about this sort of thing. Klingon. I don't think the Klingons should be running things. So,
they already are.
Yeah, that's right. But again, you get to a point like, is that Lauren expressing free speech, or is he trying to influence others, or he's paying for advertising to do this? And you start going, well, gee, that's kind of what lobbyists do, and that's kind of what you see with political advertising. So I think they're going to get. I don't know. Probably on the political side. First, they're creating these walled gardens so they can get more control of the space and probably monetize it themselves. Because that is really, when you look at Google and these guys, especially when you look at their third quarter earnings, they're doing a really, really good job with some of these mature products of continuing to monetize them very effectively. I mean, these are very smart people, right? So, but again, they really don't want to do something that undermines society. But they don't want
not in their best interest.
Liability and getting sued for certain things. So it's going to get very complicated. I mean, you have rulings like Citizens United, where you go, hey, you can have these organizations, basically, money equals free speech. Corporations are people type things. So, you get Supreme Court rulings like that, which kind of open up all sorts of interesting opportunities.
Actually, Holly, have you ever seen the New York Times video? I played it, Rocket, part of it. I didn't play all of it because it's 9 minutes long, of why Facebook and Google are so adamant of spending so many billions of dollars to give internet to the part of the world that isn't yet. It's a fascinating video about how it changes politics, how it changes economies and governments in general. Because the examples that it gives out are crazy spooky about the fact that, okay, if Facebook put a balloon over a part of Africa that didn't have internet, and then provided internet, and then helped the people who have technology to connect to the internet, but they had to go through Facebook to do it. And then a girl goes over and starts selling purses in her country that she can sell on Facebook to people on the internet in her country, but don't pay taxes because, well, she's selling it on the internet and the government doesn't have a rule about taxes yet. And so there's no money going to the government, but it's a business in the country that they're in. All these really weird, crazy things. And then also all the data that's being shared with that person is really being controlled at that point by who's providing it. And so I mean, New York Times has had a couple of great videos come out about this stuff, which is pretty neat. But again, it goes.
Yeah.
And
Put
you can
that link up,
empower
or send it.
people and
Yeah,
change. You can change societies and empower people and do all sorts. The challenge now, though, are like these troll farms where that information is getting weaponized, right? So it's these pluses and minuses. Democracies.
One of the things in the news in the video was talking about Indonesia, where a local politician. The local Facebook feed group went over and said that this politician said something disparaging about Muslims. He never did, but it was never recanted, and it actually created a riot, and the person was almost killed because the people that were on Facebook believed it to be true.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is the belief. As opposed to the fact checking and things like that, and that's been the fundamental difference. So if you look at the New York Times and the Washington Post and groups like that you can pretty much trust what they're writing, and if they get something wrong, they will retract it. It might not be on the front page with the same sized headline, but they'll come back and say, "Yeah, we got this wrong." But these other groups that are basically intentionally misleading things and providing slanted stories, that's bad. But how do you stop it? Is a really, really interesting question, because you start really, you go, okay, well, there should just not be free speech because we need to get this under control. That's not really a good. That's not a good solution.
That was the WeChat video, which also was from New York Times about China and how a lot of the U.S. companies like Facebook are trying to mirror what WeChat is like in China.
Oh yeah.
And it goes to the same topic we're talking about the consolidation of data that WeChat has about the Chinese market. Well, of course, walled gardens like Facebook, walled gardens to a degree like Google, but definitely Apple. If you get in that ecosystem, everything that you do in that ecosystem is knowledge to them. And it's a really fascinating video about making you think beyond just what you see as usability and convenience and functionality to crap. Yeah, if somebody in control had this is pretty strange to think what it would do to the rest of the world. So
yeah, you can do some really ugly things when you control it. And you look at China and kind of the ability to get data and to have it filtered. I mean, the government does look at kind of everything. They decide this particular story isn't going to go, and you look at that and go, well, okay, so this is what the Chinese government's doing, and they think it's good for controlling their society and doing whatever, and you can kind of look at that as being outrageously evil, or they're trying to
we've had that conversation.
And again, you go, well, are you a communist or whatever?
Well, I've had that conversation before about
really big questions.
But that even goes to conversations of organizations that then get themselves closer tied to those who sponsor them. Those things can go that way too. Anytime, anybody, Robert, if you kept giving me wonderful Christmas presents every year, and you came to see it, as you do, and then you ask for a small favor, I probably were more inclined to grant the small favor than Holly, who gives me nothing for Christmas, which is just the opposite. But if that'd be like, well, you're just asking me for a favor. You
didn't tell them the iPhone X is an early Christmas
present.
For you.
Yeah, right. No, but the idea of it is we do lean the way of what we have preferences of. But yes, organizations that begin to get tied to where the funding is coming from can create those scenarios. And same too if you're providing the service, that service is controlling what it is you're using it for. So to your point, Robert, when all of a sudden the service like Chrome says we're not going to do this cross branding that we did before, you're working on their sandbox, not yours.
Right.
And now all of a sudden that's new rule. Like Twitter, but Twitter was famous for this, for shutting off APIs on programs that lived on Twitter, and then Twitter says nope, we don't want that to work anymore, and just shut it off.
And Twitter just came back, and there's a report. I don't have the link that they said, oh yeah, our unique visitor numbers are lower because they were counting a bunch of stuff that wasn't really traffic on their site.
That was that link there is for the Chrome article for what Chrome's changes to it. One thing I wanted to throw in there too was the AdWords change, and this goes to our conversation about Google. So Google has been beating everybody up about their speed factor with their AMP program for their mobile platforms and so forth. And so the pushback has been, hey, look, you give us GTM shelling, but it still has to load. So now Google has decided to allow you parallel loads. So they're making it, okay, we still want you to advertise with us, and we know it slows down your site. We want your site to be fast. So don't worry. We're going to load your site first, but while that's going on, we're going to make your browser, because we built the browser that most people are using right now. Although, anyway, to load parallel all the tracking and things that go on. In other words,
Right.
I mean, you're sitting there going, talk about smart people. It's like, okay, we put this rule for you, and you're pushing back because we're making you load all this stuff. So we're just going to change how it all works and make a lower parallel load to it.
Right.
Just crazy smart stuff, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, and Google, Oliver Heckman, who's the go ahead, Holly.
And no, it's just say, and it's their driving strategy for speed, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get the site to you faster.
Mm-hmm. And Google is an AI first company. Every presentation you hear from them, that is their thing. It used to be mobile. It was always the mobile pitch, but now they are an AI first company, and that is their point of differentiation of all of this data that they've got, how they use it. Because again, all these tracking, they're first party cookies and things like that. It's not any sort of third party, that's Google versus, it's like, that's your stuff. And they've got the information, and they can do some interesting things. What I was going to say was Oliver Heckman, who's the head of Google Travel, when he was at YouTube, again, one of these really smart guys, I think he was like 30, maybe 30 something, right? PhD in whatever, electrical engineering. So I'm like, he was the guy who did the engineer who basically came up with the identifying the movie, saying, hey, that scene looks familiar. That's from such and such film. And the same with the audio tracks, right? It was that whole matching algorithm of that. And he was originally designing that, so it was for the digital rights management, where you go, that isn't your stuff, turn it off. But the genius business model that Google had was, wait a second, and they went, Hollywood hated Google until Google went, we've got this technology that can say, hey, that looks a lot like Star Wars sort of thing. And we're pretty sure it does. And not only that, you should give us all of your films so we can go digitize these things and figure it out so we can match it better. And if they're advertising on it, you'll get the money for it. How's that sound? And all of a sudden it was like, oh. So now all of a sudden, what's a great source of music? People turn on their YouTube channels, right? And it just plays, and all the stuff that it just boom winds up going to those people. And now recording artists make more money off of YouTube than they do certainly selling CDs, certainly more than Spotify, things like that. And all of a sudden, Hollywood and the recording industry love Google, right? Because they're really smart. They use the technology they built to not stop people from doing what they wanted to accomplish. What did they do? Selection.
Well, we'll mention two other smart people. One is Henry Woodman with Ice Portal, who has long been developing a image recognition system for tagging images that allows things to be identified within an image without somebody manually going in and identifying things. He's been working on that software for a long time, and Ice Portal has that in process. So he can solve one of his biggest problems, which is people that give him pictures don't tell what those pictures are. So he now has software that can interpret what that picture is. And the second,
is he doing that himself, or is he using other services?
It's a combo, but he's using other services that is a white label to base it. But then he's improving internally using that data to better identify for the industry itself. So instead of just saying a hotel room, it's identifying it based on other images that have been identified. That's a double room. And that it has a pool view or something like that. So he's actually improving the technology that he's using right now. The other is, and he's not here because he's in Animal Kingdom and having fun with the kids, Edward St. Onge. He has that photo recognition software that he's working with in Flip2 to better categorize all the shared content from consumers that are running through his systems for his clients to identify the pictures categorically without the client having to identify them specifically. Yeah, so,
I think Ed had said that he's using Microsoft's platform to.
Yes, he is using Microsoft.
He's a big Microsoft fan. Wayblazer is doing the same thing. They're using Watson from IBM. Not sure what Henry's doing, but
I don't know what Henry's using either. We should ask him. It's long overdue. He's been on the show. We got to get him back on the show again. It's been too long for eye candy not to be here.
Yeah, no, but two things are happening with all the machine.
I have to go. I'm so sorry.
We're there. Yeah, it's almost 2 hours already. Holly, thank you. I didn't expect to be this long. I'm sitting here kind of like putting it. Keep getting me. Sorry for
know.
But yes, thank you so much for coming and being here for the whole 2 hours.
Makes it so much better than just me and Lauren.
Oh my God, yes. Plus, I gotta say, I'd like I'd like the fluffiness that you were pushing back on Tim pretty hard. That was good to see. I like that. And you're kind of popping on Robert a little bit too.
I
Like,
know.
hey, no.
That's good. We like that.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, probably coming back. But I would just need Ed to come back so you can go punch him a couple times.
I know.
I was really disappointed he wasn't there. He's my favorite to persecute.
I think the more you're getting into this tech space with your schooling, I think the more you're getting like, hey. Oh, wait a minute. I got some knowledge here. Yeah.
The opposite is true. I feel like a moron. I spent 4 hours trying to create boxes in CSS.
I hate
it's humbling.
CSS and I do not get along. We don't
get love at CSS either. I hate CSS. I don't understand the logic.
I have been forced to learn the logic, and I kind of like it. Although, and we'll have this conversation
that
another
is
time.
so outstanding stuff that
it's so much fun. I'm having a blast.
I mean, no, and all of a sudden you're probably seeing the world in a completely different way when you see these going, why did they do that? They could have just done such and such. Oh my God.
I don't think I'm quite there yet.
You will, though. You will.
Holly, if people want to know more about you or get in contact with you, where can they find you? What do you
Holly Zoba at signatureworldwide.com.
Yay. Holly, thank you so much for taking the time today. I sincerely appreciate it all.
Thanks for having me. So great to see you and feel better, Lauren.
I will. I'm going to go take medication as soon as we're done. So it'll be okay.
Good. Bye, Robert.
I thought this was medication.
It is actually medication. Give me 2 hours of distraction is what it did. This is
I'm sorry for the laughing. Goodbye.
No, bye. All right, Mr. Robert. Yes, we're at that point. I'm sitting here thinking, it's time to take a pill because this is I can't ignore it too much more. But anyway,
but that's what you do after every show, where you go. It's been 2 hours.
I just drink. Self-medicated.
The pain is so great. I've got to stop the show now.
No, it's more self-medication after 2 hours.
The only thing I was going to say with Holly on the AI stuff, the interesting thing is though that these groups now are sharing all of that information and data amongst themselves, and this open AI project that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel have is pretty incredible. And so, I think you raised some great points on this whole thing that it starts with advertising, but then it's the data, and then it's free speech, and it's taxation, and all of this. The world is changing dramatically. As we speak, and there are going to be some very, very interesting, decisions of what is best for society and culture on these. And these are not clean, easy decisions. And the answer probably, if you listen to Elon Musk, certainly is don't let the computers decide.
No.
So, but then again, who's coding those and who's controlling those? Making decisions, you start getting some really, really serious questions. But my theory is the end game for all of this winds up being, and I don't know if it's the blockchain. I don't think it's actually the blockchain, because there's actually another. There's something newer, and I just saw this guy who's really into this stuff just sent me something that's like, oh, that's even better. But I really think at some point. I really abide by, Amazon is successful because they have conspired with consumers, right, to fight against brands, basically. They are destroying kind of brands. And you could say Hopper may be doing kind of the same thing. We are going to give you information to make better decisions. And are you really loyal to the brand or not? Or do you just want kind of the best thing, the best experience, or the, whatever that you can get in this thing? And then how does that really work? But I think at some point it's going to be, this data is going to be structured and available, vast amounts of content that then ultimately I really look at the owners wind up getting empowered, right? And then you don't necessarily need the brands, where it's these tech platforms saying, hey, we can connect you to these consumers. You don't need these intermediaries to go.
Well, we had that discussion earlier about the fact that even from a financial point of view, most hotels don't get built because banks or financial institutions are not willing to take the inherently additional risk in their mind for a non-branded build.
Right.
So having brands at the table allows a stability that allows for finance. When that begins to get diminished, for whether the OTAs begin to step into that space or enough of this technology of even the playing field in a market sense for hotels to be an entity into their own without having to be related to a brand. You're going to change that, but to a larger sense of it, we've always been under the prospect that governments represent the masses, and then we create governments based on the ability to control the representation for one for many and all this other stuff. With these platforms that we're dealing with, and this comes out of the link that I shared from YouTube, is wonder if somebody could speak to the masses without having to filter through a layer of representation. And when that happens, now who's really in charge? Because if it's the person that developed the platform, they are. If it's the government controlling the platform, then they are. If it's controlled by the masses, meaning that not one person owns, and this is where the blockchain conversation comes. If there's a stability of equality through everything,
trust,
But then,
systemic trust created by the technology,
Right. So there's a lot more larger scale things at play that are far beyond our hospitality discussion. But to that end, what you're saying is for hoteliers to really succeed is to, like Hopper begin to have this rate predictability and so forth. Hotels have to really realize their place and ownership for what they're owning the hotel for, have to take on more control of their functionality and not just rely that the brand they write a check and the brand should handle this, because the brand's not up for their interest. We've had that discussion many times.
They're outsourcing a lot of things, and it's the hotel industry is in a very inefficient sort of structure. And the OTAs are in many cases much more efficient.
Right. Well, decentralized. You get fewer people making larger decisions.
I mean, I beat on the brands a lot, but I also understand their challenge, because they get a situation where I don't care. You've got hotels around Atlanta, right? And I don't know how many. IHG properties or how many Marriott, there are hundreds of them. And they wind up doing programs that wind up having to promote everybody. And you're like, well, we shouldn't be promoting this guy. That's a dog property and it's in the wrong location. They shouldn't get a cent because we're just throwing good money after bad.
Or the reverse of it, they're contributing to something they're not going to get a benefit from.
Exactly. Well, no, and that's it. You're just like, we've got to do this to make it fair across all the brands. So they get into a lot of those situations too, where they just wind up setting money on fire because they have to.
On both sides of the conversation, yeah.
And that stuff somehow has to get cleaned out, and that's a really tough. All I know is, as the function I went to last week, I think I mentioned on the last show. When you start tallying up and you start talking to these owners and developers, you start tallying up, here are the fees to the brand, here are the fees to the management company, here's the fees for financial settlement, here are fees to OTAs. That's not sustainable, right? I mean, that doesn't work. And and the brands are right. They've got to try to figure out how to wrestle down the economics of these OTAs, because they are getting, from the brand's perspective, they are getting paid too much, and they are using that money they're getting paid to fight against the brand's best interests, right? And that's
now you're paying the lawyers rather than making business. Very true.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting, but nice to hit the big topics. We didn't cover science.
Yes, or religion, but we'll get there. We should mention that Tim Peter, who was on earlier, who lost his connection, for those who wanted to discover more about Tim Peter, is at Tim Peter and Associates. It's timpeter.com and at TC Peter on Twitter. Phenomenal podcast he has, Thinking Out Loud.
And I thought he had just quit because I had just nailed him.
You crushed him.
He just crushed, and he didn't even take time up to wave the white flag. He just left.
There's no hope. He had to capitulate. There was nothing else he could do.
And you could see the expression on his face. It was just like,
he was. That and his eyes were kind of closed too. Yeah, he was just frozen.
Yeah, exactly. He just couldn't move. Yeah, couldn't move. Couldn't come back from my.
There's no recourse to what you said. Absolutely. But Mr. Robert, if people want to know more about you and what you do, where can they find you?
Robert K. Cole on social media or rockcheetah.com.
Yes. And for archives of this show and show notes and links, and of course, a lot of topics that we didn't actually get to today, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live or directly to the post for this, which would be /116. There you'll have the show player in its entirety and also all the links and so forth. For Mr. Stuart Butler, who didn't make us from Fuel Travel, I will taunt you in the closing credits of the video whenever we record this. And for Mr. Ed, you're going to be a Copa because you're bringing the family out to Animal Kingdom. So nothing bad will happen to you from that.
Wait a second. I thought the family brought Ed to Animal Kingdom so he could get checked by the vets there.
No, I think he just wears a costume. I think he's the Lion King today. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. But Halloween isn't a necessity.
I had no idea Ed was a furry.
Yeah, he was a furry. I think he's a furry. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Robert. As always, thank you for the entire duration of the topics that you sent over.
He's not going to like that. But he's never going to see this.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm going to make sure you guys. Actually, to be honest with you, I enjoyed our last dialogue. I mean, it was just 2 of us at the end, and I think we made some really excellent points. I'm going to go back and write some quick notes about it because I think
all that dead weight of Tim and Ed and Stuart and Holly. I mean, who really needs that?
Who sees that? We can keep ourselves entertained, right? Yeah, right. Nobody else will listen, but we'll be there.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Robert, thank you so very much for babysitting me today as I sit around here making scrunchy faces from time to time. I'll be in better spirits hopefully a week from now.
Lauren, when you eat a bone-in ribeye, you are not supposed to eat the bone.
That's a little late advice. That's just late advice.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. That will hurt your stomach, so don't do things like that.
I figured if I chewed enough small pieces, that would work. But anyway,
Exactly.
Mr. Robert, thank you so very much. For everyone else that joined the show, that we thank you for that, and for those who listen to it after the recording, we thank you for that time as well. Join us next week, show number 117. I believe we're having Darlene Rondeau from VFM Leonardo to join us as our guest co-host again. She's coming back with us for a little bit. We have quite a few guest hosts coming to us for the rest of this year. Actually, we have a couple more lined up after that. So we're going to have some fun as the year progresses, closing 2017 down, having some interesting perspectives. So with that, I thank everyone, and we will see everyone next Friday, 11:30 Eastern, for show number 117. Bye, everyone.
Good. Bye. Have a great weekend.